Earlier this year, Games Workshop announced that 11th edition 40k was on the horizon and that the new core narrative would be set on the planet of Armageddon, and immediately the nostalgia hit hard. The Blood Angels were returning as the poster boys, or, if you remember 2nd edition, becoming the poster boys again. The new artwork called back heavily to the classic box art, and I've even seen Games Workshop painting the new starter set miniatures with the old black flame details the Blood Angels used to have. So naturally, when you combine all of that nostalgia with the Armageddon setting, many of us started thinking about Armageddon's native Imperial Guard force, the Steel Legion. But strangely, the promotional artwork for 11th edition, and even the teaser trailer reintroducing Commissar Yarrick, was completely devoid of Steel Legionaries. Instead, we got Cadians and Krieg uniforms absolutely everywhere. And honestly, this feels very representative of Games Workshop's current trajectory. Gone are the days where they'd even briefly promote something from their own universe that they no longer actively sell. Personally, I found it disappointing. I've always loved the Steel Legion aesthetic, and while reproducing the old miniatures would obviously take work, asking your commissioned artists to include them somewhere in the artwork or trailers should have been a no-brainer. It is their homeworld after all. Instead, we got the excuses. Oh, after years of fighting, there aren't many Steel Legion regiments left. Mate, Cadia literally exploded, and somehow there are still infinite Cadian regiments running around the galaxy. I'm pretty sure Armageddon can spare a few Steel Legionaries. And yes, of course other Imperial Guard forces would be fighting on Armageddon too. That makes sense, but completely sidelining the native regiments just makes the whole thing feel less like world building and more like product marketing. Which brings us to today's video. Games Workshop's official tutorial for converting plastic Krieg models into Steel Legion, and by convert, they mostly mean just paint them yellow. As you can imagine, that went down just as well as a cup of cold sick. Eventually Games Workshop teased some concept sketches of the Steel Legion after community pushback, which I think are old sketches they binned after one keen employee tried caring about the setting some months back. So today I want to find out just how versatile these Krieg kits really are, because if painting them yellow makes them Steel Legion, then surely painting them red makes them Vostroyan. Thanks everyone for watching, and I'll see you in the No, could you imagine? No, absolutely not. Today we're actually going to see how far you can push these kits, and whether we can turn plastic Krieg models into something that genuinely captures the feel of the Vostroyans, with actual sculpting, kit bashing and conversions. So let's get started. So in this video, we're going to try and create 2 Vostroyans out of these plastic Kriegsmen. Right, and the reason I'm aiming for 2 conversions here is one model will be built under the assumption that you also have a Vostroyan model kicking around, and the other if you don't. Now, we're not going to cut this guy apart, but we are going to use him for his gas mask and the front of his bearskin hat. So that's where the blue stuff comes in. We can make an instant mold of the front of his face, and that will mean one Kriegsman immediately looks more Vostroyan because we've got the gas mask right. Now the other figure, we're going to sculpt a bearskin hat onto the Kriegsman gas mask to see if that will roughly work. And for that, I've also found this shoulder pad in the bits box with a tiny little Aquila, so we'll cut that off and mount that to the front of the bearskin. Right, so the first thing I need to do is go through these figures. They turned up in the post this morning. I need to clean up the mold lines. I need to mount the arms and legs to various bits of cork so I can sculpt like cuffs and the tops of the boots to them. And I think we'll probably begin with making a copy of this guy's face. So if you've never used blue stuff or instant mold before, it's got a few different names. It's really simple. You need to cut an amount off that you think you're going to need to cover the area you want to copy. Or you can reuse sort of old pieces like I've got above the figure there. Throw it into some boiling water for a couple of minutes, let the putty become malleable, then you can carefully pick it out, press it over the area you want to cover, let it solidify for, I don't know, 5-10 minutes, and you can peel it off the model, throw some green stuff into the void, and presto, you've made a copy of whatever it is you want to copy. Now, for something like this, doing it by hand is absolutely fine, but I have found if you're trying to copy like 3 sides of a figure, it's better to make a little staging area out of Lego bricks, right? So a little void with Lego bricks, use the smooth tile so it doesn't get caught around all the studs, and then what it means is you can put the malleable blue stuff inside the Lego and then kind of press the figure into it. That means the blue stuff has nowhere really to escape, and it makes a really nice copy of your figure. by hand, you run the risk of, as you're pushing it to the left and pushing it to the right, it kind of escapes one side, and then you actually get a distorted mold of the figure you're trying to copy. So it's not difficult, but that's just something I've learned over the years doing it. So let's throw some boiling water in here, right, and then dump that in the water. So we'll give it a couple of minutes and then get out. Right, so let's have a look. Yep, that's pretty malleable. So I'm going to fold it over so I've got kind of a smooth side, and then just push it into his face. And so kind of wrap it round. And that's all there is to it. We're going to let that solidify, and then we can peel it off and then throw some green stuff into him. While we wait, let's mix up some green stuff. Okay, that should be cured now, so let's carefully just peel it off. There we go, you can camera pick up on that roughly. It looks good, doesn't look like it's distorted, so I'm just going to get the green stuff, throw it in there, get the sculpting tool, make it wet so it doesn't stick to the tool itself, and just kind of push it in. Okay, so I've mounted all the various limbs and whatnot to cork and just make it easier to sculpt onto. I think the first thing to do is to try and break out this green stuff copy that we've made of the Vostroyan gas mask. There you go, comes out relatively easily. Right, there we go. So it's not a bad copy. I think it'll be fine when the paint's on it. So what I will do is I will trim this down and then mount it directly to the body of the guy on the right. I think it needs to be attached to the body first because it's only half a head. I can't sculpt onto that. But I think before we start mucking around with the bear skins, let us begin doing the boots, right? So Vostroyan boots are kind of, there's a few different varieties because Vostroyan armor is kind of like heirlooms, kind of hand-me-down sort of thing. I don't know how they reclaim half of the equipment after it's been blown to pieces, but nevertheless their uniform is pretty varied in its styles. But most of the Vostroyans have like a turnover boot, which is what I'm going to try and copy here. So let us mix up some green stuff. So I'm just going to pinch some green stuff to the outside of the leg, right? And then using the metal tool, we're going to start shaping this and pushing it round. If I keep losing focus, I do apologise. That's the problem with videos like this. I'm trying to pay attention to what I'm doing and not what the camera's up to. Right. So the reason I am joining the green stuff together in the inside leg is it hides some of the, well, it makes it a little bit more neater on the outside, which is where the eye is going to be looking. We should be able to smooth it down. So I've now swapped over to the rubber tool, and I'm using the back sort of smooth side of it, kind of, well, smooth the green stuff out and do a few sort of circular motions. Circular motions just to smooth that green stuff down a little bit. Mounting the pieces to a bit of cork has made it easier to sculpt to in some ways, especially versus like sculpting on a model that's completely built, but there are still some areas that are a little challenging to get to. Right, so I'm using the edge of the rubber tool now just to give the ends of the turnover a sharper edge. And that's why I like the rubber tools, because they kind of bend round the model as you're doing it. Right. So this isn't very neat here. Let's try and push that in. Right. Now what we want to do is, it's quite flat at the moment, so I want to add some definition. So I'm just going to make the middle of it slightly lower than the rest. Some water on it again. And return to just sharpening up the edge of the boot, just in case we pushed it out and what have you. There we go. Now if I grab the scalpel, I'm just going to put a slit, a cut on that side. Try and poke it underneath just to lift it slightly. And we can go back to the rubber tool. And again, just trying to poke it underneath the green stuff, just flick it out a little bit. There we go. So let me do that to the other three legs that we've got here, and I will see you in a sec. But while the boot's are curing, I've trimmed down the green stuff gas mask, cut away the tubes coming out of the side, because we're going to replace those in a sec, cut down an awful lot of the fur as well. Now the reason I've done that is when we're sculpting the back of the bearskin, all the fresh fur, all the malleable green stuff, it's really hard to then blend it into something that's already cured. So I've cut down as much of the cured fur already. It's just going to make our lives a little bit easier later on. And I've just left the Aquila at the top. Now obviously this figure we're cheating a little bit and using the existing Vostroyan. The other one we're going to use the standard backpack, but I think for this guy, considering I'm going to replace the tubes on the side of the gas mask, and those tubes go into a backpack, let's copy this backpack as well. So move that out of the way, bring that in, boiling water, blue stuff, Right, what's this look like? Yeah, not bad. I can work with that. So it needs to be cut down because obviously we just want the backpack itself. Right, where's the end? Right, I'm also going to cut away the tubes because we're going to replace that completely. Right, there we go, that's what we're left with. Now I just need to stick it on the back of the torso. Put a tiny dab on the back of his body here. Just a little bit up the top. And stick that there. We're going to definitely need to fill in the void behind, but I can do that later, just a case of sticking some green stuff up there and then smoothing it out. But next, we need to connect the gas mask to this backpack. And for that, this is where the roll maker from Green Stuff World comes in really useful. This is a great investment for anyone who does a lot of green stuff work. It has 3 different sizes, and it makes the packet. It makes a variety of different danger noodles. So we're going to grab some green stuff, pinch off a small amount, roll it somewhat into a sort of snake-like shape. And then stick it in the middle of the roll maker, stick it to my fingers, get some water, make sure that there's plenty of water in between these two plates, and then making sure that the grooves are all running in the same direction. Throw it on top, and then backwards and forwards. And then what it's done is it's made us a little sort of like cable. Right. So from here, I'm going to cut down some of the edge that is not really formed as well as the rest. And this is the tricky bit. What I tend to do is put a little bit of super glue on a paper clip. Right. And then with that you can put a little bit of glue just on the edge of the area that you want the cable to stick to. Rest that there. Because obviously this green stuff is still, it's not cured. Easy does it. There we go, we're just going to hold it there long enough for the glue to get a bit of purchase. Now I know some people will let their green stuff cables cure before attaching it to the model, but you have less flexibility that way round, so you can't, it's hard to then push and pull it into a more natural sort of drop if it's obviously already cured. There we go, that's just about there. Not too bad, that's too bad. Then, knowing that we still need to stick his arm on, and that arm has a shoulder pad, I'm just going to keep this cable as close as possible to the collar. Right. And then, I think this one, let's cut it there. Now as you're cutting it, you can also kind of just join it to the side. And then with the rubber tool, I just want to try and make it fit a bit more naturally. There we go. That's not so bad. So I'll do the other side, and then a lot of this, obviously the top of it will be covered with the bear skin. And obviously still need to fill the back of his backpack in so it's neat against the body. But that's how you add some cabling to his gas mask. I'll do that off camera. So next thing, I think, before we can start work on the bear skins, let's do the cuffs. Now, Vostroyans, I mean, what they wear, just like the rest of their uniform for their gloves, is pretty varied. Some of them have like a brass gauntlet, which I'm not going to try and emulate. I'm trying to keep things somewhat simple considering everything else we're doing in the conversion. So what I'm going to do is enlarge their cuffs, make their cuffs a bit bigger, just to sort of copy some of the other Vostroyan models that seem to have quite big leather gloves. Use the metal tool just to give it a bit of shape first. Put it where we want it to be, and this is why I'm doing it on cork, because then you can get round here where you just wouldn't be able to do if the model was already built. Then with the rubber tool, do exactly the same thing we did with the boot cuffs. Just trying to smooth it out. Just try and flick the bottom of it out a little bit just to give it a bit of movement. And then if I can put the tool slightly underneath it, just emphasize the fact that it's kind of a turned over cuff. Alright, nothing major, but I think it will help the overall aesthetic in the end. Right, so let me crack on with the rest of the cuffs. I will finish the tubing on the gas mask, and then I think we can begin work on the bearskins. Right, so I think it's about time we started work on the bearskin hats. So let's begin with the Krieg gas mask. So I've got a ball of green stuff. We're just going to stick to the top of his helmet here. Right, now I sculpt these Vostroyan bearskin hats in two phases. So we're just going to do the bottom part of it now. And with the metal tool, we're just going to bring the green stuff down and around, covering the helmet. I like to think that Vostroyans wear helmets underneath their bearskin hats anyway. Just going to cover that. Make sure it's somewhat uniform in shape. Yep, right. Then with the bladed side of the metal tool, we're going to use the back of it, right, and kind of flick the green stuff down. Just like that. So work on the bottom first, because then you can obviously flick the sections above into what you've just done. Stopping periodically to make sure it's still in focus. Right. So then it will naturally taper off to the top anyway. We want to make sure the top is sort of rounded, because that's going to help us blend the next layer of fur into what we've done here. So then I'm just going to go around, just make sure none of this should be visible after the second layer, this bit at the top, but I kind of just want to be safe. Right, then you can go back round and flick elements of it if you think there wasn't enough detail in a certain area. Right. And that's the first stage of it done. Doesn't look too great at the moment, but it will, I promise you, it will all come together with the second part of the hat. So with him done, let's move on to the other guy. So same principle. This is going to be a little trickier because we've obviously got the front of the hat still in place, but trying to give it some shape first. And then again, use this to flick downwards. And then try and flick some bits over that first bit as well, that cured part. Right, and from the front, Probably try and shift a little bit more of that over there. Okay, it's getting there. So let's put those down and let them cure overnight. So while we're waiting for those bearskin hats to cure, the first stage, let's do some detail work on the arms. So what I want to try and do here is add a tiny Vostroyan V to their shoulder pad. So as you can see, I put a very, very small bit of green stuff roughly in a V shape. So with the metal tool, I'm just going to try and press it on, make sure it's actually stuck to it as best as I can, flattening it out a little bit. Yeah, make sure it's still in focus. Right, then with the scalpel, we're going to give ourselves some sharper lines. It's going to make our lives a little bit easier. We want to make sure that the side of the V on the left is thicker. Right, there we go. With the rubber tool, I'm just going to start sharpening the V up a little bit. And then they kind of have these, I don't know what the term is, the tops of the V's kind of flick. Out, like it's like a capital. What am I thinking of? Particular font, isn't it? Right, okay, that's a pretty decent shape I'm happy with. Right. Let us then get the scalpel, and this side of the V has like a second line. Like so. Okay, try and bring that into focus. It's not perfect, but once it's all painted brass, I think it'll just add that little bit extra detail. So I'll do that on the other left arm, so both of them have got it. And then we can't do much until the rest of the bearskin hat is cured. But with the power of editing, they now are. So the reason I sculpt these hats in two phases is it allows you to put a slight tilt to the bearskin hat if you wanted to, like it could be collapsing to one side as he's running along. This one, however, I'm going to sculpt pretty straight on. So once that blob of green stuff's in place, we're going to give it some rough shape. So obviously what we're aiming for is a cylinder. So we need it flat on the top and smooth and round the sides. Right, so now then with the bladed section of the tool, we're going to sort of from the middle poke outwards. Right. Just like that. Then we can go back and kind of shape a little bit more. Right, okay, I'm happy roughly with that shape. So then just like we were doing before, we can use the back of the blade, kind of hook downwards into the existing fur and just work your way all the way around the bearskin hat. Okay, then with that done around the side, we're going to work on the top. So starting from the outside, and flick outwards. I'm going to work our way around. Just like so, and then we can just apply a little bit of finer tweaking around, try and get the shape that we want, poking and pulling as we see fit. And then some of this is still a bit smooth. I'm just going to add a little bit more texture to it. Still don't want to lose the sort of edge of that cylinder at the top of the hat though. So you don't want it too rounded at the top. You want it quite a, it's not, well, is it like a 90-degree angle almost at the top you're aiming for? There we go. I'm roughly happy with that. Now, as I mentioned earlier on in the video, there was that little shoulder pad with the Aquila. So let me just try and grab that and stick it roughly in the middle. Just going to press it in as far as it can go. It's going to distort the green stuff slightly, and then kind of hook a little bit more of the fur around it. The green stuff should hold it in. You shouldn't have to glue it. Obviously, if it pops off comes out when it's cured, you just try and glue it back on. But there you go. I think that's worked. So that's him with the Krieg gas mask. As for the other guy, you can do exactly the same thing, but probably this time fast forwarded. And just add a little bit finer poking and pulling, pushing around until we're happy with that end result. Okay, there we go, there's that guy. But before we glue them together, there's one other thing I want to do, and that's add some sort of coat detailing. So the Vostroyans quite often have like Aquilas or arrows at the bottom of their greatcoat. So I want to try and copy that. So on the back of this guy, let's try and do an Aquila. So I'm going to flatten that down a little bit, and the rubber tool, let's try and smooth it somewhat now. Just start getting it into some basic shape. Okay, roughly there, it's the right sort of shape we need. Half triangle, or triangle. Now let's get the metal tool and just add an indent in here. Detailing like this, it doesn't have to be super detailed. It just needs to give that impression. So let's start putting the wings in. Okay, for what it is, I'm happy with that. Just need to copy it on the other side, but I'll do that off camera. And the other little detail they seem to have, as I mentioned, is little arrows. So be careful. I'm going to be careful with this guy's hat because it's still curing. Let's add another little bit of green stuff just to the edge of his coat. Up in position, and then no, not the tall, the plastic. Thank you, please. Yeah. I'll smooth it out somewhat. Let's make things a little bit easier for ourselves. Cut away some of this excess. And then neaten it up. Okay, so I just need to copy both of those onto the other side, and then I think it's a case of gluing them together, taking stock of what we've done, and then slapping some paint on them. So there we go, that's those two all glued together. Now I think that the one using Vostroyan parts is the better model, I think. It fulfills the brief better. So if you do have access to a few old Vostroyan models that you can make copies of their backpacks and gas masks, then that's the better option. Having said that, the one with the Krieg gas mask, I still think it works pretty well. Yes, it's obviously not their usual gas mask, but once you've painted them all up, you know, with the cuffs and the boots and the bearskin hat and what have you, and then maybe little details like the V's if you want to go that far, it will definitely look like a Vostroyan army once you've, you know, especially if you painted them red and gold. I mean, more power to anyone that wants to do this across an entire army. You know, the amount of Imperial Guardsmen you need, that's a lot of conversion work at this level. So maybe it's not viable for an entire collection, but if you are an existing Vostroyan collector like I am, and you just want to add a few more units to your existing force, then, you know, I think it's a workable solution to buy the plastic Kriegsmen kits. Even, for example, in my own Vostroyan army, I don't have any Rough Riders, so, you know, you could use this same level of conversion on the Krieg Rough Riders to give yourself some Vostroyan Rough Riders if you wanted to. So it's definitely possible. I think there's more you could probably do with the plastic Kriegsmen beyond just simply colour swapping them. Now obviously I've not touched the weapons, because that's a different ball game entirely, the weapons. With the bearskins and the fabric, you've got some leeway to not do it exactly the same each time because it's a soft fabric at the end of the day. But with weapons are mass produced. To try and hand sculpt the same conversion each and every time, I think it would draw attention too much. So unless you're kit bashing the Krieg rifles with something else to make them look Vostroyan, maybe the stocks from the Kroot rifles, that could work. That's a possibility, but for now I just wanted to keep it to the uniform and not muck around with the weapons. But yeah, last thing is to put some paint on these guys to really show off the end result. I'm not going to go through today and give you painting tips. If you are interested, I've got videos on painting red cloth, gold, oxidized brass already up on the channel, so yeah, feel free to check those out if you wanted to. But let's get some paint on them and get a final verdict. And there we go, that's those two all done. So what are your thoughts? Do you think one worked better than the other? Like, personally, my preference is the one with the Vostroyan gas mask. I think it does look more Vostroyan, obviously. I think the fact that we painted them red and gold helps a great deal. I don't know what it would look like, how much of an effect we would still have if we had painted them a different colour. I know most Vostroyans are red and gold, and I don't often see Vostroyans not in those colours. In fairness, my own Vostroyan army isn't red and gold, so there we are. But yeah, I think they work pretty well. I'm happy with them. I still think it's a lot of work to do if you were going to try and convert an entire army. But yeah, let me know in the comment section what are your thoughts. If you'd like me to tackle other Guard regiments, just let me know. I've got one more Krieg model left on the shelf that I was thinking about converting into a Valhalla Ice Warrior. If anyone's interested in that, just let me know, and obviously I can start working on that video. But yeah, if you have liked this video, like this video, subscribe for more Warhammer content. And in the meantime, take it easy, and I will see you in the next one.